He's a genius, can do special things with the football.
Ball still in there. Pulisic! Yeah! Hat-trick!
This one drops in! And forget about it!
Golazo! Golazo! Golazo!
Welcome back to the Soccer Show at SleepyHollowRadio.com, where we discuss all the soccer around the world.
I'm here. This is Kevin Aguirre, joined by Aidan, and today we have a pretty nice show for you guys, where we're going to discuss the Premier League, Match Week 4, Champions League, Europa League, the MLS, the U.S. Women in the Premier League, the U.S. Men's National Team review, with the players, and how the pandemic elevated soccer in the United States.
Let's jump right into Premier League Match Week 4. We're going to spend 30 seconds per game. Let's start right with Chelsea versus Crystal Palace. That game was dominant by Chelsea, 4-0 victory. Ben Chilwell looked brilliant in his debut, scoring the first goal. Pulisic finally made his way back into the starting squad after dealing with that terrible hamstring injury. It was a slow first half, 0-0, but they scored 4 in the second half. Very impressive by them. And then that defense, commanded by Thiago Silva, recent transfer, played absolutely brilliant.
Everton and Brighton's up next, and Everton comfortable 4-2 win. Electric attack, super aggressive and fast paced. This Everton squad, this new one, is bringing so much to the table. They're currently undefeated, 4 straight wins in a row. Dominic Calvert-Lewin continues his dominance with 6 goals in this league. James Rodriguez also fitting very well into Carlo Ancelotti's squad. Up next for them is going to be the Merseyside Derby against Liverpool. This will be one of the most interesting derbies I've ever seen for the Merseyside in years. Well, meanwhile for Brighton, they'll play Crystal Palace next week to see if they'll have any redemption.
And then jumping into one of the big surprises of the week, Leeds versus Manchester United, a 1-1 draw. Rodrigo scored his first goal for Leeds in the Premier League. And on top of that, Leeds had loads of scoring opportunities to put that game away. Manchester United had one of their slowest starts ever in the Premier League. They're sitting at 14th place. When did you ever think of that a Manchester team would be sitting that low in the table? Yeah. And it's kind of shaping out that Leeds is going to be one of the better teams in the Premier League, possibly a run for the Europa League.
Absolutely. Possibly, maybe, I'll have my doubts, but another contender for the Europa League, Newcastle United, as they beat Burnley 3-1. A Newcastle United, a new, completely different Newcastle squad compared to last year's. They had a dominant performance against Burnley. 2 goals from Callum Wilson, 1 goal from Alan Saint-Maximin. Burnley's currently struggling in relegation position. And there's talks about Nick Pope possibly leaving the club, going to a bigger club like Chelsea, maybe Arsenal. We'll see what happens with them in the January transfer market. And
Nick Pope doesn't want to stay around if that team's going to be relegated. His talent deserves much better than Burnley.
Yeah, I mean, he gets called up to the England squad and still plays for Burnley. I think he's ready for a top-notch club.
100%. Let's jump right into Leicester City versus West Ham. A huge surprise. West Ham won the game 3-0 against a Leicester City team that looked like it had no flaws. Mikel Antonio led the charge, and it was what kind of won them the game. They were playing very extremely aggressive, which allowed them to break through their lines and score. Leicester felt overwhelmed, and that's what kind of allowed them to win. Actually, Leicester had 0 shots on goal.
Yeah, next up, Southampton against West Brom. This was a comfortable 2-0 win for Southampton. West Brom didn't show that much in this game. Southampton looked like they really took care of business. For West Brom, I think I do believe they're going to get relegated, so, just might as well put in your best performance as of now. So, for Southampton next week, we're going to have them play Chelsea. And for West Brom, they're going to have to face Burnley.
A relegated matchup for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Important games. And then we'll go into the next game. Sheffield United, who's looked the worst in the Premier League, lost 2-1 to Arsenal. And Arsenal has dominated that game. It was slow at the beginning, but they finally broke through with a beautiful header by Bukayo Saka. And then 3 minutes later, Pepe scored to make it 2-0. And Sheffield United just scored a garbage goal at the game to make it that one. But they're playing extremely poor football, and I don't see them returning to the Premier League after this year. And Arteta's influence on Arsenal has been monumental. Now they're one of the top teams in the Premier League.
Wolves against Fulham is up next. Wolves, they defeated Fulham 1-0. I think this game was pretty balanced. Both teams had their fair amount of shots, their fair amount of chances at goal, but in the end, it was Neto's great goal, which gave Wolves the 3 points. Nelson Semedo also made a good impact for this team, filling in that right wing back spot for Matt Doherty, who left for Spurs. Up next for Wolves, we'll see them play Leeds, which I think is going to be a pretty interesting match.
It'd be a good game to see, and that their full squad comprised of like everyone from Portugal. It's
Yeah.
awesome. And then now we're gonna spend a minute on these two games because these games deserve a full minute of discussion. Tottenham versus Man United, 6-1 Tottenham victory.
This is absolutely humiliating for Manchester United and its fans. This is like no one expected this result. Tottenham with a strong performance. You got to give them credit. I mean, you come into this match and you expect them either to draw or it's going to be like a fair game. But no, this whole time, this full 90 minutes, it was a one-sided game and it was in favor of Tottenham Hotspur.
Manchester United were psyched at the beginning of the game with a 2-minute goal.
Yeah, with that penalty converted by
Bruno Fernandes, and then things changed fast.
Yeah. We could talk about the red card that from Anthony Martial when he supposedly hit the back of Eric Lamela. This was I don't see this as a red card, maybe a yellow card for both Lamela and Martial, because Martial did not go with full impact. I do think that
I thought it was a red card. I just felt like it was the intention.
Okay,
the intention was there, and he was behind him, so I think that influenced the red card.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, Harry Kane looking solid with 2 goals. Heung-min Son with 2 goals. A goal each from Ndombele and Serge Aurier. For Man United next, they'll have to play Newcastle. And they have some pretty interesting business to do in the Champions League, which we'll discuss later.
And a hot Newcastle team could easily be able to get a win as well.
Definitely, yeah.
Man United sitting at 16th in the table and are definitely struggling to stay up.
Yep, and Tottenham will have to face West Ham, which would be a good match considering West Ham just defeated Leicester 3-0.
And then, just final, it seemed like they were panicking on Monday.
Yeah.
All those new transfers they signed, signing Alex Telles and Edison Cavani.
Yeah.
Looking to just rebuild that squad the best they can, even though they should have what they need.
Yeah. And you thought the 1-6 victory for Tottenham was surprising. Wait till you hear this. Aston Villa 7, Liverpool 2. This was an embarrassing match for Liverpool.
I feel like anyone would mess that up. There was no chance anyone thought that Aston Villa could score 7 goals against Liverpool.
It's like I said earlier, you have to give credit to Tottenham, but not only them, to Aston Villa as well, because you expect them here in this game to be the underdogs, could they pull off the impossible and defeat the champions of England? And yeah, they have, and this was like a really strong victory. I mean, Liverpool didn't have Mane, they didn't have Thiago, they didn't have Alisson, they didn't have Henderson. They missed a lot of key players.
And it seemed like what Aston Villa did was so effective was their aggressive press continued to overwhelm that Liverpool back line.
Yeah, who would have thought former Brentford striker Ollie Watkins would score a hat-trick against Liverpool? This is crazy. I mean, and you see Ross Barkley coming in from loan from Chelsea, and he's made a massive impact in this game. Jack Grealish as well, John McGinn. These are like players who were going to be relegated last year due to their poor performances on the pitch.
They escaped relegation by 1 point last year, and now Dean Smith has turned this club around into possibly a title contender.
Possibly. I mean, Aston Villa, they won their first 3 games in the Premier League. I mean, straight wins, no ties. And they could be like on their way. I mean, to be Premier League champions. Maybe we can possibly see them playing Champions League or Europa League. We never know.
And I think we'll see. We'll see how they're tested after the international break when they play Leicester City. So that'll show if they can beat Leicester City, then this team is even more legit.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to wait to see what comes their way. So now the handball rules in the Premier League. This is a pretty controversial topic, considering this has to do with VAR and like VAR, and it's basically what, in my opinion, I think it's ruined football.
It's severely hurt the game. I mean, the new rules state that if the ball hits your shoulder or arm and you use your shoulder and arm to make yourself look naturally bigger, it's a handball, and that has caused numerous penalties in the box, more than any other season to start.
Yeah, let's take a look at Manchester United Brighton a few weeks back. This game was supposed to be ended 2-2 as a draw. Referee blew the final whistle, goes back to check the late last minute call for the handball inside the penalty box, and it was a penalty for Manchester United. This was like crazy, especially like you don't see a ref giving out a penalty after the full-time whistle.
And all these accidental handballs, like what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
It's like you can just aim for their shoulder and you got a penalty in the box.
Yeah, because of this, Manchester United got all 3 points, and it was all crazy. And another game, it was Tottenham against Newcastle. Last minute, like I said, Eric Dyer, I believe it was, with the handball. Referee had to go to VAR, and it was a penalty. It was converted by Callum Wilson, and that earned each team a point at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
I think the solution that the Premier League should put is one of the solutions to cutting down on penalties to make the box a little smaller, make that area a little tighter, draw less penalties, and as well revert back to the old handball rules where it's like if it hits your elbow in hand, that should be a penalty, but elbow up, if it's accidental, it shouldn't be considered handball.
Yeah, in terms of like making the penalty, like changing the size of the penalty box, I don't think that's necessary. This is another controversial topic, which relates to the handball rule topic, is that VAR. I think VAR has made a massive impact. I'm not saying whether it's positive or negative because it has its ups and downs, but ever since VAR went into football, they started using it. They've got used to the process. It's like as if in terms of celebrations, you look at players who celebrate and then VAR says nope, offside. It's like I hit the ball in the hand. The defender did that. VAR checks it, and it's like you either call it a handball or not. And there's some cases where it's a clear handball, but the referee just doesn't do anything.
I think the concept of VAR is very good. It's making, especially for those offsides, yes, it may change the goal, but in the end, they are making the correct call.
Yeah.
And I just think the only thing is the people behind the VAR making those calls. They just have to make better calls, and your situation is solved.
Absolutely, yes. And speaking of next topic we have here is the Champions League draw and how it all went down. For me, I think contenders to go to the round of 16. I do think obviously Barcelona and Juventus in the same group G. I do think they'll go through no problem. Dortmund and I do think Lazio or Zenit. Not sure there. It's gonna be a close. That's gonna be a close group.
That will definitely be a close group, but it seems like Dortmund could squeeze by.
Yeah,
and
definitely
advance, and then it seems like Manchester City, they have the easiest road to the round of 16.
Yeah.
Only playing Martial, Porto, and Olympiacos.
Definitely. I do think it's happened for quite a few years now that Manchester City has had the easiest group out of all of them. And I do think they'll go through to the knockout stage and no problem.
They're still searching for that Champions League.
Yeah.
With Pep Guardiola.
I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, you didn't expect PSG to make all the way to the final last year.
It was an impressive run.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think we should just point this out. The Champions League pots and how the system was drawn. I don't think it was very fair, and it really equally distributes the teams among their skills.
Well, let's just review how they make this draw fair. They have 4 pots, and in each 4 pot, they have, I believe, 8 teams per pot, and therefore, pot 1 contains the champions of Europe, such as Bundesliga champions, League 1 champions, Premier League champions, La Liga champions, Europa League champions, Russian champions, which I don't think should be Zenit was group F. leader. So I don't see them. I don't think they
And
should.
no one sees them as a contender.
Yeah, no one sees them as a contender. Instead, you should have someone like Atletico Madrid or Barcelona or like Ajax, like be like one of those.
It seems like the problem having like Zenit as a pot one team is they don't play as a pot one team.
They don't, because it's like a completely different team, a completely different league that they play in
I
compared
think
to
they
the
should
others.
reform the pots, like how they draw the pots, and they should rank them. Everything should be about like power rankings. If best teams are in pot one, then so on and so forth.
Yeah, with Barca and Juventus, however, this seems like it cannot happen. Like Barca and Juventus are two very good teams. That it's so hard to see them in the same group. But in this case, however, because Barca did not win the La Liga title, I think pot 2 was deserved for them, obviously, because they weren't La Liga champions. Real Madrid were.
And it could have been Real Madrid against Juventus as well. It's just
definitely.
Like, either way, it doesn't seem real. Maybe switch Zenit and Barcelona, and now you have two much more equal groups.
Yeah. And speaking of, Group H is probably the group of death, with Manchester United, Paris Saint-Germain, RB Leipzig, and Istanbul Başakşehir. This is probably one of the most intense groups out of all of them. I mean,
Definitely extremely difficult.
yeah, absolutely. You look at the quality from RB Leipzig, Manchester United, PSG, Istanbul Başakşehir. I mean, they came into the Champions League for a reason. They won the Turkish league, but I do see them fourth place due to the fact they don't have enough quality players.
And it seems like, they have, with like Istanbul, it seems like they'll be struggling. But like with Leipzig, they've kind of always found a way to win.
Yeah,
especially when they lost
definitely.
Timo Werner, they were still able to make it to the Champions League semifinal.
Yeah, I mean, they've added some new players, and we'll see how they perform. We'll see, like,
Playing against PSG and
Yeah.
Manchester United, extremely difficult. And I think
Definitely.
the other group of death is Group D with Ajax, Atalanta, Liverpool,
and Mitchell.
and then FC Michelin.
Yeah, this is quite an interesting group. I didn't expect Liverpool, like, these. Don't get me wrong. These are quality teams. Ajax, Atalanta, Michelin. I mean, they're in the first time in the Europa League in like ages. I mean, not in the Europa League, in the Champions League. But I do think that it's Liverpool. They're gonna struggle somewhat. Ajax, they have a quality team. I mean, they may have sold their players, their key players, like over the years, which may make it difficult for Ajax to beat Liverpool and Atalanta. But look at this Atalanta team in the Serie A. These guys are no joke, especially like rising up to the top the last 2 years. This is incredible stuff from the Italians. We could see Atalanta like beat Liverpool, like in this group stage. I mean,
Atalanta could easily win the group and make a run.
yeah,
They're
definitely.
extremely underrated in Italy.
Yeah. And now talking about the Europa League, where we have some quite interesting candidates to win this year, such as Tottenham, Arsenal. You have Roma. You have Bayer Leverkusen. You have all these good teams, Real Sociedad, for example, as well, Milan. And one team who you didn't expect last year to be in this Europa League is Leicester City.
And they surprised themselves.
Yeah,
They
definitely.
got knocked out on the Champions League on the final day
Yep.
of Premier League.
Yeah, we would have seen Leicester City in the Champions League. However, they did sort of flop after the lockdown, which caused them to drop to 5th, and Chelsea would replace them in 4th. And
And I'm sure that Leicester City team, like, yes, they lost to West Ham last week, but they're foreign. They're looking to win the Europa League and make a statement.
yeah, one team though that I'm interested in seeing is Granada from La Liga. You know, they placed 7th last season in La Liga Santander, and this is a team who's debuting in the Europa League for the very first time. Interesting. This is a good squad filled with quality players. I mean, they've had some nice signings, and we'll see. We could see them end up like Wolves last year. Like they
Make
went,
a run, yeah.
Definitely. So I do want to see this Granada team like excel in the Europa League this season.
We are going to take a short break, and we'll be back discussing the MLS breakdown.
Welcome back to the Soccer Show on SleepyHollowRadio.com. Up next, we will discuss the MLS and who the hottest teams are. One contender for one of the hottest teams in the MLS is Toronto FC, who have been dominant so far, with 10 wins, 4 draws, and only 2 losses so far. And this team's led by the Spaniard himself, Alejandro Pozuelo, who's made 4 goals, scored 4 goals in his last 2 games. And he's made a case for the Landon Donovan MVP award. I mean, this man is no joke in the MLS. 7 goals, 9 assists. It's very impressive for him and for all of Toronto.
And then in the West, it seems like the Seattle Sounders are the dominant team. Their form in the last 5 games is 4 wins, 1 loss. And they're led by Raul Ruidiaz with 9 goals this season. Ruidiaz is set to join Peru for the South American World Cup international break. And it seems like Seattle's had so much depth this season, and that Will Bruin can step up after returning from an ACL tear this past summer. The Sounders have been dominating the West, sitting at the number 1 seed, and it looks like they can make a run into the playoffs.
Yeah, another team who could possibly go into the playoffs, NYCFC on the East Coast. They're currently fifth in the league right now, the table. And this team is led by Anton Tinnerholm, Alexander Matriza, Tati Castellanos, Maxi Morales, unfortunately, is with a knee injury, and Eber as well. Their main strikers out with an ACL tear. This team won 3-2 against Inter Miami, and just last night they defeated DC United in a comfortable 4-1 win. This team looks pretty dominant. I mean, from yesterday's results, Ismael Tajuri Shradi scored 2 goals, 1 goal from Tati Castellanos, 1 goal from the former Benfica player Keaton Parks. And yeah, this team, it's no joke. They also have Ronnie Delia, from the former Celtic manager, and they must rely on him to step up and maintain their playoff ranking and even push for a home field advantage in the first round. So we're still holding out on the future for the new stars from Europe, such as Messi, who could possibly come into this New York City FC squad and play in the Yankee Stadium if he signs a contract with Manchester City. And at some point, if that contract does state that he must play for NYCFC in the upcoming years. So that will be pretty interesting.
Maybe we'll finally bring a title to New York for one sport.
Yeah.
And we have 2 chances also with the New York Red Bulls, who last night lost a close one to Inter Miami 2-1. Their form in the last 5 games is 2-3, and Higuain's goal. We'll move back and forth between Inter Miami and the Red Bulls, but Higuain's goal last night, first goal in the MLS, was a beautiful free kick.
Yeah, what a banger!
And that hurt the Red Bulls. Now we're sitting 7th in the East with 20 points, led by Daniel Royer, who has 4 goals as a midfielder, and Kyle Duncan, 2 goals and 3 assists in defense.
Yeah, and speaking of Inter Miami, we are going to talk about them. Not the strongest start to an MLS season. I mean, it's their debut season for David Beckham's men. 4 wins, 2 draws, and 10 losses. Not the best, but you do want to continue to put your best foot forward out there for to see where they could end up.
And it seems like their new transfers from Juventus have been fitting in very well.
Yep.
Higuain, obviously, his first goal last night, and then Matuidi, he hustled back to save that goal at the end. It would have been 2-2, but he hustled back, kicked it away, which was just brilliant play. And obviously they were hoping to get Edison Cavani to join them, but he chose to remain in Europe with Manchester United.
Yeah, I think Edison Cavani, he's in Manchester United as of now as a free agent, but I do see himself in the future playing in the MLS. If it's not with Inter Miami, could be with a different club, maybe LA Galaxy, LAFC, all these different teams. He's got quite a wide amount of options, so we'll see where he goes.
We'll see. And yeah, it looks like in terms of our New York teams, things are looking up. 2 playoff teams. That could be big for us.
Yes.
And we can roll into something that's been emerging over the summers. A lot of the U.S. women from the U.S. women's national team have been moving to the Women's Premier League.
Yeah, these women are no joke. These are World Cup winners from last year, as you guys probably saw the World
And they
Cup.
beat the Netherlands.
Yep, definitely.
Alex Morgan transferred to Tottenham recently.
Yeah,
And
we have Sam Lewis and Rose Lavelle, who moved to Manchester City. Lavelle, who did score on her debut. Tobin Heath and Kristen Press to Manchester United. So the Manchester Derby will be quite an American derby for the women, as you might say.
And it seems like it's similar to the men's league. The women's version, their soccer league in America, and same with the MLS, are struggling to compete with this European competition. It's just at such a high level.
Definitely, yeah.
That they're struggling to keep all their players there.
Next up, we're going to review the players from the U.S. men's national team playing in Europe, starting with Serginho Dest, who made his senior debut for Barcelona in that 1-1 draw against Sevilla.
That's awesome to see an American playing for Barcelona.
Definitely. I mean, we have Conrad de la Fuente already playing for Barcelona, but this is...
To get a start against Sevilla, who's one of the top clubs.
Yeah.
That's
definitely
great. And then Christian Pulisic, we mentioned him earlier. He is back for Chelsea, healthy. He played 7 minutes in the 4-0 win against Crystal Palace, and I'm sure he's thrilled to be back after that terrible injury in the FA Cup final against Arsenal.
Definitely. Another American on the rise, Gio Reyna, with 3 assists. Yeah, that's right. A hat-trick of assists for Dortmund in their 4-0 win against SC Freiburg. This Dortmund team looks really solid.
He couldn't be any more thrilled. Still at the age of 17, he is playing world-class football.
Definitely. His dad, the great legend himself, Claudio Reyna, must be really proud of his son and what he's achieved so far.
Yeah, he's playing at a extremely high level for Dortmund, number 2 team. He'll be playing Champions League football
soon. Yep.
Make a run in the Champions League.
Next up, Chris Richards for Bayern Munich gets his first start for the German champions, gets an assist as well, and assist to Lewandowski in their 4-3 thriller win against Hertha Berlin. This was really a game that went back and forth.
4 goals by Lewandowski. That game was something else.
Yeah.
It should not have been as close as it was. A little scary for Bayern Munich, the champions of Europe, but it seems like their attack is still playing at an extremely high level.
Yeah, and Josh Sargent helped Werder Bremen beat newly promoted Arminia Bielefeld. And, we're talking about a Werder Bremen team who were so close to being relegated last season. I mean, they played in the relegation playoffs, but I do think that they'll step up. They'll perform pretty average this Bundesliga season. I do think that they won't have to suffer relegation.
Yes, and then... So for our last topic, we're going to talk about how during lockdown, when all the sports shut down, the first sport to reopen in the world was the German Bundesliga. It was soccer, first sport to make a comeback. And Kevin, how that's influenced the game for America.
Definitely. I mean, you see all these sports that are really popular in the United States, like American football, basketball, baseball. However, these sports didn't make a comeback during lockdown. But soccer did around the world, and we were able to predict that easily, just because of how when we talk about the coronavirus, we're talking about social distancing, 6 feet apart, and I think that's soccer. That's that's mainly what the sport is about.
They figured it out first, and Germany did a great job. We were watching soccer. That was the first sport, watching them in June.
Definitely, yes. And let's just discuss why American soccer is not the top of the world right now in terms of training. For American soccer, especially when you're playing middle school level, you're not allowed to make headers, which is, I think, it's a big part in this sport. I mean, it makes up the sport.
Headers are a major aspect of the game.
Definitely
influences tons of games, and it's hard to bring so many. It's hard to bring all your best players to soccer just because there's so many other sports. You have American football, basketball, hockey, baseball, lacrosse, and where in other countries soccer is the sport.
Soccer, definitely. I mean, yeah, it's just like you said. It's with the competition of these other sports that are really popular, like American football, basketball, baseball. Don't get me wrong; these are all amazing sports. I mean, it has a lot of a fan base, but in terms of like being the best sport in the world, I think it has to be soccer, football. You would say overseas, but
Yes.
this is a sport where everyone gets united. Everyone like comes together, like especially during World Cup season. This World Cup is no joke.
There is no sport that can bring a country together more than soccer.
And there's like so many like controversy saying, oh, the Super Bowl final, it's better than the World Cup and all that, but in reality, it's
World Cup every 4 years. That's something else.
definitely, yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
And I think so for next week, we are planning on having you guys be on the show as callers
Yep.
and asking your questions. If you're interested, talk to Mr. Frank or Kevin and I.
Yeah. Part of this Sleepy Hollow soccer show is you guys, the fans who make up, we thank you guys for the support, and we'll hope to talk to you guys soon, most likely next week.
If you have any suggested segments, please let us know. And thank you for watching episode 2 of the Sleepy Hollow Soccer Show at sleepyhollowradio.com.
I'm Kevin Aguirre,
I'm Aidan Valor.
and thank you guys for watching, for listening. Hope you guys have a good day.
You know, he's a genius. He can do special things with the football.
Ball still in there. Pulisic! Hat-trick!
This one drops in. And forget about it.
¡Gol arco! ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!